reminders about stuff that you should be getting. So it's kind of a, just have to kind of judge it as to whether or not it's time to do that, you know. So that's essentially what I was doing in the document I sent you yesterday, setting that out. So so this is on a purchase. So then the next stage, it's not necessarily the next stage. You can do, they're not in sequence. You can do one before the other. It depends on you may have, for instance, on a sale, you may have the title documents and you may have all the title information before the property has been sold. So on a sale, you would be, the next step is to complete the title details. As I say, you may be doing that before the property has been sold. On a purchase, the next step is to confirm that you've got the draft contracts. So I'm going to do that one. So we'll assume that we've got our contract. I think I went through this the last day. So the next question is it private treaty or to be purchased at auction? And this is just a step to stop you from, just to get you to make sure that you're going in the right direction. So it asks for the date for that you received the draft contracts. I put that in way back at a stage when we had an issue about we hadn't got a contract, and there was there was an issue about the delay in getting the contract. So I've put that in. It's probably not necessary, but it's there since. And then you can check the details then against the contract that you have your details right. So if you want to change those, you can go in here and go into the purchase. So I'll just stick in, I see the price is left out, so I'll put that in there. I assume there's nothing else there that needs to go in there. And then it asks you to put in the solicitor's details if you haven't already put them in, so you can go in here and go in there for the contacts. Now, Andrea asked me the last day to show people how to do a contact. So I suppose when you set up the file, if you know who you're dealing with in any conveyancing file, you're going to have your client, you're going to have the other solicitors, you're going to have the auctioneers. Auctioneers aren't so important, I suppose, on a purchase, but on a sale, you're going to be dealing with them for the booking deposit and all that kind of thing, their account. And you will have a bank, either on a sale or a purchase. You'll be either redeeming a mortgage or there'll be a new mortgage. You might have an engineer. So you put in as much of these as you can. Now, I'm not sure what Andrea was referring to the last day, but so the first thing, if you want to put in a contact, the first thing you do is to search for the contact. So let's say you want to put in a local authority because you want to write to the local authority for an NPPR discharge or something. So there you have several Roscommon County Councils there. So you can put in one of them. Then you have to click on all the information that comes with that in order for to be put in and come into a letter, etc. Now, if you can't find, so the first thing to do is to search for the entity. or the contact. There's no point in creating a new one because there may be one there already. So if you can't find the contact that you want, you'll have to make a new one. Oh, sorry. So if you go on, it's only when you're adding a new one that it will ask you to create the entity. So it's just like creating a client, same as creating a client, except it's not a client. So whatever it is. So if you can't find your county council there, you go into local authorities and you put in all the details. I'm not going to create any county council now or any other contact. Okay. So that's so you have I think you have the solicitors, don't you, there? Yes, we do. We have ourselves. So then that's on a purchase. It just checks that you've got a contract. So the sale and the purchase are the same at this stage. The next step is to complete the title details. So it's a similar process as to what we did in relation to the instructions. There's a title details form there, which is the same as what's in here. I'll go back to that in a minute. So on the sale, it skips on the sale, obviously you're doing things in reverse because you can't draft the contract, you can't send out the contract until you've completed the title details. On a purchase, it's the other way around. You want to know what the title details are until you've got the contract. So, but at this stage, the step is the same. So again, like the instructions, you can put in as much information, go into the title details here and put in as much information as I think I went through some of this the last day, or most of it. Put in as much of this information as you can, and so you have basic title details are there. This is to do with whatever burdens are on folios. I mean, I only put in sporting rights and stuff that you have to deal with, sporting rights and charges in here, any land annuity. So there's a list of them there. So any other kind of that you wouldn't ordinarily have to do anything with, you can leave them out. So it's quite a long list, but so rights of residence and rights of maintenance, you're going to have to get discharges for those. The next one I think I mentioned the last day is to do with easements. So this is only if you're granting or reserving an easement. It's nothing to do with easements that already affect the property or are already in existence. So there's a list of them there, and so you have to pick whether or not they're going to be granted or reserved, and you have the usual colours for easements: yellow, green, etc., and whatever folio the easement is going to be over. It could be, I would say in most cases it's going to be the same folio as you're acting on a sale of, or it could be another folio. And then you have planning. So again, you have a list of planning types. The pre-92 ones aren't affected by building regulations. So the reference, the date, if there are any financial conditions, have you got a receipt for the financial conditions? Is there a certificate of compliance? And the date of it and the engineer. And if you have a second planning permission, so good on the capitals. So if the same certificate of compliance relates to the two planning permissions, you can just put in here the same as above. So then you don't have to put in any more details. If you've got a second certificate of compliance, as you sometimes do, you can just put in certificate of compliance, and you can put in here it's an additional certificate and put in the details there, the date and the engineer. So all of these, this serves to compile a list of documents that you're going to be handing over or receiving on completion. I think that covers everything there. As I said the last day, it's not really geared for unregistered titles, so but you can put in your unregistered, you can list in your unregistered title documents in here, one after the other. It'll give you, you'll have a list of what you should be getting, or what you expect to get. So I'm assuming that you have all that done, then you can go back up here to the title details form. Actually, that's a blank form. So, but it follows the same format as the forms that I've just been in. So you can give this to the fee earner and get them to fill it in for you. Then you can go back in then and put in the details as I've just been through. And if you want to move on, then you can take this step here. You're going to complete the title details, so you can add in whatever information has been missing in here or back into the same screen, and it'll go through each of the ones that I've gone through one by one. And then you have a choice of, if you're happy that you've put in everything that you need, so then the only thing outstanding there is, which I think comes in every case, is to check the planning conditions. I think I mentioned this the last day. So then you're drafting the contract, and I went through that the first day, I think. So you can draft the contract, draft the replies, and send out the contract. So that's on a sale. So on a purchase then, now at this stage you can, the two steps left there are, we'll assume that we've got the section 150 back. The two steps left there are to get the contract signed by the client and to complete the title details. So you don't have to do one before the other. They're not dependent on each other. You can get the contract signed by the client if you want to, or you can do it the other way around. So when you complete the title details on a purchase, I'll just, I haven't done this one, I'll just go through it. So it's, and say it's not leasehold. I'll leave out the thing about the easements. Although there's a lot in it, in most cases there'll be very little to complete. So that one there has a couple of burdens. I'll take these out because I'm not doing that. So we'll assume that you've done everything. So it puts in a couple of reminders or items that you have to check there. You've got a septic tank certificate of registration. Have you got a letter roads and services? And a letter about the group water scheme. Again, it's asking you to check the planning conditions. So there's a step there, draft rejoinders and title. I see people doing this differently to the way that I do it myself, but this is the way I do it. So I do a letter, at this stage I do a letter with my rejoinders on title. So that's just drafting that there at the moment now. Just have to wait for this. And the reason it's taking so long is because it goes through all of that information and checks to see if you require anything in relation to any of that. You'll see the list in a moment. So you can see, I don't know if you can see this, you can see document 6 there being filled in. Getting near the end now. Oops, sorry. So that's, there are my rejoinders on title now. The first items there are there to do. Obviously, I've gone through the replies to requisitions and I've gone through all the title documents, and the this letter has picked out those items, but they're not exhaustive. So it's just assuming that these items have to be obtained, but you may have lots of other stuff. So in the first part of it there, it's drafted by reference to the various requisitions. So obviously didn't put in anything about contents, so it's asking, are there any contents included in the sale, and asking for a value for those. It's asking for there's obviously a septic tank, so it's asking if the septic tank and percolation area are entirely contained within the boundaries. That's probably a matter for your client survey rather than something to be relying on the vendor to confirm. And then it's asking for the letter from the group water scheme for the confirming that it's connected to the group work scheme, and also a letter that the roads and services are in charge. So we're assuming that none of those have been provided. So as I say, you could have, just tidy that up there. I have a lot of other items. I don't know. It depends on what you find in the replies to requisitions. So then it goes on to requisition 45. So I see people sending in what they call, or sending back what they call a list of closing documents with the contract. How I do it, I ask for the documents that I'm expecting to get at this stage. I ask for them at this stage in requisition 45. When I'm drafting a contract, I also fill in the requisition 45. So this is, I say, this is what you're getting. So it's up to them then to, it's up to the purchase solicitors then to ask me for whatever they think they should be getting. So that's my list of closing documents, if you like, which I'm calling requisition 45. Some people do refer to it as requisition 45. Some people send a list of closing documents, but it's open to you at that stage to say, if you get a list of closing documents with your contract, you can say, well, you've signed the contract. You know, there's no point in asking me for closing documents now. This is the stage that you should be asking for it. So anyway, so this list of closing documents is generated from all the information that we put into the title details earlier on. So it has the folio and file plan. Obviously, if the title is unregistered, you won't be looking for folio and file plan or section 72 declaration. You might remember that there was, I'll just go back into it. So in the burdens, there was a land annuity and and there were sporting rights and fishing rights on the folio. So items 9 and 10 there you can see is the letter, it's looking for the letter confirming the land annuity has been paid off and the declaration that the sporting rights and fishing rights have not been exercised. Also it's looking for the letter from, I know this is a repetition, but it's the requisition 45, so everything should be in here. The letter from the group work scheme, so that's in there because the services section says that drainage is, or sorry, that the water supply is from a group water scheme. Deals with local property tax and in PPR. Now, if it wasn't residential property, in other words, if you had a different type, if you had the property down as, I think it's up there, property type, dwelling house, if it was solely commercial, you wouldn't have any of that. And obviously you'd have, in the alternative, then you'd have looking for information about rates. So then the remaining items there, BR cert, you're always going to have that, certificate of registration for septic tank, and the planning permissions, and the 2 certificates of compliance or opinions on compliance that we referred to, and the receipt for the financial contribution in the planning permission. So that's it there. Condition 23. So I'll go out of that. I usually send that by email. The next step there is write to the solicitors with the rejoinders. So do you want to send it by email or by letter? I usually send it by email. I don't know what will happen if I choose letter. I think it just prints it. Yeah, just prints it. And you'll see there's a step put in there saying that you've sent the rejoinders. And there's a reminder to confirm that you've got satisfactory replies. The other step there that I sometimes use, not always, but well, I always do this, just in case. So if you want to add in any additional or amend the special conditions, this will produce a list of special conditions that you might want to be putting in. It's not good for your eyes, I don't think, to be looking at this, but anyway. Just let it, finish. So all I think I've got there is it's just a condition about completion. Oh yeah, and there's a condition about the contents. So obviously I've got instructions that there are contents included in the sale, so I'm putting that in as a condition. And I must have put in, we must be getting a mortgage, so there's the mortgage condition is in there as well. And you can add in whatever else you want, or you can amend this in any way you want to. And there's another step then to write to the solicitors with the special conditions. So that's just just reminding you not to forget to add the draft special conditions that you're sending with that. So we'll assume that that's gone as well. So then the next step there then is, how are we for time? 20 minutes. So you could have done this prior to what we've just done, or you can do it now. So you're getting the contract signed by the client. So you can do this in a number of ways. So the first question it asks you, are you going to get the mortgage documents completed at this stage? I'll say we'll do that later. And I'm going to do it by way of attendance. So you can do it by way of attendance or a letter. And sometimes I send the clients are abroad, I send them an email and authorize them or get them to authorize me to sign the contract. So again, it asks you about the mortgage documents. So then it's just doing the attendance. So you can change the attendance in whatever way you want to. It's just a kind of draft. So that's the attendance there. It just kind of goes through the advice that you would be giving the client. So we'll assume that that has been done. So I'll just print that or not print it. So it asks you, have you got the deposit? It leaves in a reminder to get the mortgage documents executed. It's looking for proof of ID. So the next step then is to confirm that contracts have been signed by the client. And that puts in a step to write the vendor solicitors with signed contracts. Now, you can see that there are a lot of steps there outstanding, as it were. So the earliest one is, or the first one is to do the attendance on the client with instructions. So you might do that when you got instructions, or you might, when we did the instruction step, or you might do it when the contract is being signed. So it's just an attendance, that's all it is, and it refers to the instructions sheet, and it completes the instructions sheet again. Based on the information that you've put in. So you can sign these, you can sign the attendance note and put it on the file and the instructions sheet as your instructions. I won't go through all of these, but so it's obviously looking, you have to get your client's marriage certificate, reminding you to get the marriage certificate, to get a price or value for the contents, so that will be relevant for stamp duty, whether or not you want to get any instructions in relation to the closing date, confirm if letter of loan offer has been received. So we'll say that it has. So it asks you what's the bank. We'll say AIB and the mortgage account number and the loan. So obviously we got instructions that the loan was to be 100,000. Let's see, check if survey has been done. Let's say we're told that it has. And then ask you, has the report been satisfactory? We'll assume that it has. So then it asks you to do, if you want to do an attendance note. So your client might ring you up and say, my survey has now been done and it's okay. So you put in whatever instructions you get there. Now this will come in the form of I think it's yeah, there it is. It's got one of these notes here rather than an actual attendance. Confirm if the property has been correctly identified on the map. So again, it's the same as the survey. I won't bother with the attendance this time. You're going to do a planning search. So we'll assume that you've done that. So the reason that came in there is because in the instructions sheet I ticked the box that the client wants us to do a planning search. So it has put in a step there to confirm the planning search is clear. So we'll say that it is. So you could go down through these here. Have we got the letter re-roads and services? And say that we have. Have we got the septic tank certificate? Probably not that important, but oh yeah. So there's a step there to confirm that you don't have to qualify your undertaking. So let's assume that you don't. And we'll assume that we've got satisfactory replies to our rejoinders that we sent earlier. So if something has changed, this is just a reminder to change the details. So the reason it's doing that jumping about is because it's just assuming that you've put in some changed information and it's just checking it. Forgot to print the special conditions. Check planning conditions and say you have confirm group or scheme letter received. So I suppose you'd be going through all of these things before you send back the signed contract. And we'll assume that your special conditions have been agreed, or at least you've negotiated something satisfactory. So there's one there asking you, have you got the deposit? And it asks you to confirm the amount of the deposit, which should be €10,000. And it actually opens up the posting slip, but you may not need to complete that. Get the mortgage document signed. I'll skip that one. Do the bill of costs. So I usually do the bill of costs when the client has signed the contract, so that I'm ready to send out the oh, let's see, I took the wrong step on the qualified undertaking. Took the wrong option, so I'm going to have to qualify my undertaking. Anyway, I assume that I didn't do that. So the next step then to move things on is to write to the vendor solicitors with the signed contracts and deposit. So you see, when you do this, it asks you for all this. It shows up what you haven't done. So it may be that none of these are of any relevance for to what you're doing, so you can just plow on. Include draft deed, and then it's just asking you to update the title details again if you haven't done so from the replies to your rejoinders, just to make sure that you have everything up to date. And put in the value of contents. We'll put in the value of contents at €12,000, and then just there is a thing in Partner for converting figures to words, but they haven't provided us with it, so you have to do it this way. So now it's drafting the deed of transfer. I should have actually left in the...
John?
Yes?
Michael Cooney on the line for you.
I have to call him back.
Okay.
What was I saying? I should have left in the easements because it will it would include the easements granted and reserved in the transfer. So this asks you how you're paying the deposit. So in most cases it's a transfer, bank transfer nowadays, and it asks you to complete the transfer form. So it's drafting the letter and the transfer form. So you'll have to fill in the rest of it yourself, the bank details. So you've got the, just get rid of some of these. So there's the deed of transfer finished, more or less. You just have to tidy it up. Now I forgot, I just went on through that, but it gives you two options for the address for your client in the transfer, either the property address or the client's own address. So that's what that / is there about. So that was there when it asked me that question, but I didn't do anything with it. So that's the draft deed. And so I'll print both of those, as it were. So that's the, sorry, I should have shown you that one. That's the letter to the solicitors with the contract, deposit, and draft deed. So we'll assume we've sent that out. And so I'm going to ignore the loan for the moment. The next step there you'll see is to apply for the loan check, and back there somewhere there's a reminder to get the mortgage document signed. I'm not going to do any of that. So you then have to wait for the vendor solicitors to come back to you with the signed contract. So that's that step there. So it's, you can see that it will appear in my diary on the 5th of April to confirm have signed contracts been returned by the vendor. So at that stage you can say you have got them, or sometimes you have to write and ask them where are they. So there's an email there that I send out. Please let us have one part contract signed by your client as soon as possible. If there's any difficulty, please let us know immediately, or you can elaborate on that, or whatever language you want to use yourself. So assuming that you have got the contract, then you take that next step and you're asked to put in the date of the contract, and as is the contract conditional. So that would be, I suppose you'd with a contract that's subject to loan, you probably would want to put that in. But if you've got your loan offer, you mightn't want to do that. It's just a case of it being subject to you being able to get your loan check. If it was subject to planning or something like that, then you would click on the box yes. I'm going to assume that it's not conditional. And then what's the closing date? So it's usually 28 days. So we'll say we'll put it in for 28 days. So it's just doing a bit of jumping around here now because it's just checking what you've put in. So there's just a step there or a line to say that the contract has been returned, signed by so now you have a binding contract. It is put in it's put into the diary, the closing date. And the next step is to complete the purchase. We have 5 minutes left. So if I go into, what date is it? The closing date is the 26th of April. So if I go into my diary for the 26th of April, oh, it's not there. It usually is, so I don't know why it isn't there. Anyway, there's plenty of them there somewhere. There's one for Martina Milani. Closing date was the 6th of April. Sale has long been closed. There, Stephanie O'Callaghan. It's one of Patricia's, so that's tomorrow, or sorry, Thursday. Anyway, they do go in, so I don't know why it didn't go in that case. But anyway, so as I say, I'm not going to do anything with the loan check. So we'll assume that you've got that you're ready to complete. You've got your money. Now you can go in here to see what things are.
John,
Yeah.
Tom Flanagan is in conference room 2.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
So you can go in here to see what's outstanding. So obviously you shouldn't have many of these if you're at the stage where you're about to complete your purchase. But anyway, I just skipped through them. Now, whoever set this up did it on the basis of didn't order the lines properly, so you have to go in. You have to click on completed there to bring up the ones that aren't completed. So the ones with the dates are the completed ones, and the ones without the dates under completed are the ones that are still outstanding. So the ones with and the more urgent ones, complete purchase, apply for loan check, have a due date on them. Okay. And now the other thing you could do is if you want to put these all together, is just go through them and postpone them like this. So the first item there, the first option on all of these is to postpone. So you can just go through them like this and they'll all end up at the bottom. No, sorry, some of them are like this. The postpone is the second item. So they're all down there now. So we'll try and complete the purchase in 5 minutes. So you'd have done your bill of costs and sent out your completion statement to your client, all of that at this stage. So the first one there is to write to solicitors with balance purchase money. Now, there's a kind of a warning here that you haven't got any closing documents, so it's up to yourself as to whether or not you're going to send the money without the closing documents. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And write to solicitors with balance purchase money. So it's just checking what the balance purchase money is there. There's no apportionment because I didn't look for an apportionment account. There's a step there somewhere, I think, looking for an apportionment account. So usually I'm doing a bank transfer, so I just send an email rather than a letter, but there's an option to send a letter, so it's completing the bank transfer for you there. And what else is it doing? That's the email. Oops, the email opens in Word. So if you try to send it without closing it, this is what happens. So there's the email there. So again, you can amend this in whatever way you want. So most of the emails on this open in Word, so you can amend them before you send them. So just amend them, close them, and then send them. So it's asking me, do I want to add more time? So that's the email there saying that I'm sending you the balance purchase money. And then there's a step, assuming you've got the closing documents, to check the closing documents, and it prints a list of the documents. Now, I should probably have made a change somewhere along the line, because this would pick up that change. So what I do is I print this off and I go through the closing documents and I tick them off as I find them. So it probably doesn't change, probably rarely changes from the requisition 45 to this list. So this list is for my own benefit, really. So I just print it off and put it on the file. So then the step asking you to check closing documents is still there, because you have to confirm if you have or you haven't. So there are a couple of steps there. You can actually request the closing documents if you haven't got any closing documents. So that does an email as well, or request outstanding documents. So that does an email. I think it's an email. It just does that twice for some reason. No, it doesn't do an email. Thought it did an email. I'll have to look at that. So then the next one is to do your searches. So we're assuming that you've got the closing documents and they're all in order, and they've got your money. So you're doing the searches. So it does up a memo of what searches you should be looking for. So in most cases you're going to know what they are, but I suppose your secretary can do the searches. Maybe they do, I don't know. I do them myself, but there's the memo setting out what searches you should be getting or should be doing. And then you can write for an explanation of searches. I want to say the searches are clear. So, and then it asks you, do you want to release the proceeds of sale? Oh, yeah, it's reminding me that I haven't confirmed that I've got the closing documents, but anyway, we'll just write to solicitors to release the funds, or you could have done an attendance. And that is asking you, has the sale been completed? But I'll just go into this email first. So that's the email. So it's open in Word there, and you can amend it. We confirm the matter is now complete. You may account to your client for the proceeds of sale. Please release the keys. So this is asking you, has the purchase actually been completed? So we're going to say yes, it's completed today. Reminds you, do you want to change the client's address now that they've moved house, presumably? I didn't actually send the email. So I think I will wrap it up for that that stage. So assuming the sale has been completed, so the new reminders in there then are to do the stamp duty return, and it puts in a date for the stamp duty return date is the 26th of April. Let me see, did that come into my diary? probably doesn't until I get out of partner or out of that particular. Okay, so probably a lot to take in, but I think if you follow I'll do an addition to the document that I sent yesterday, just as a kind of an aid memoir to what to do next on what I've done today. So it's essentially, if you follow that, there's only 5 or 6 steps involved. If you do that, then and you follow if you do those 5 or 6 steps, and then you follow the steps that come into partner after that. Now I can take out all of those reminders if they're annoying you or whatever, but I find sometimes you do overlook something that it will tell you about. So that's the reason I put them in the first place. Okay, so we'll wrap it up for today because I have to see my client.